Hello, we are Eunice, Sunil, Shreya, and Valentina, and we're going to present our urban form and design assignment number 2 of Cooks River Restoring the Balance. First, we would like to explain our approach to connecting with country framework, where this framework establishes a broader concept that invite us to see the land not just as a physical space, but as a living entity rich with history, culture, and meaning. This connection calls us to reflect on three key values: caring, recognizing, and collaborating. Caring in terms of taking active responsibility of the health of Cooks River, recognizing in terms of deep and unbroken relationships between indigenous people and the river as essential part of understanding how the river has changed, and finally collaborating, meaning bringing together indigenous knowledge with modern environmental practices. By embracing these values, we're not just protecting Cooks River, but we're reconnecting with the land itself in a way that is inclusive, respectful, and sustainable. The Cooks River catchment spans over 100 square kilometers, covering urban areas from Stratfield to Botany Bay. This river system is fed by a network of creeks, stormwater drains, and natural wetlands. Historically, it has been a vital resource for the Gadigal and Wangal people. However, over the time, due to a heavy impact by urbanization or urban development, the water body has been affected. However, the Cooks River is still recognized as a permanent water body for Sydney area.
As you can see on this map, this is the ancient river course in the Eora nation before the European settlement. It was called Gulay Yari, meaning place of pelican dreaming. The river was then taken by the British and renamed it after the explorer James Cook. The river course was slightly changed according to the flow and topography. Until 1946, the Cooks River Improvement Act was passed. A lot of the sections of Cooks River was canalized, especially the whole downstream. The river was moved and the channel was altered due to the expansion of Sydney Airport. There is an obviously man-made stream that entered the Botany Bay. In the study of Cooks River, there's a lot of indication about the Aboriginals and their lives along the Cooks River. However, it was tragically taken by the colonials. With connecting to country framework, how can we understand the history and recontextualize to its current existence? Aboriginal people have a long history of settlement along Cooks River. They survived as hunters and fishers, and the river has been a gathering place for family and clans, especially in the lower course of the river and Botany Bay. Thousands of generations of Aboriginals have been living along the Cooks River. Although the river was taken by the colonial, the Aboriginals still visit and use the river because they have a strong sense of custodianship for the heritage and the environment. They are physically and spiritually linked to the Cooks River. The whole catchment of Cooks River was shared with three clans: the Gadigal, Wangal, and Gamigal. Gadigal settled on the lands to the northeast of the river, including today's Sydney CBD. Gami is the Aboriginal name of Botany Bay, and Gamigal is a clan who live in the north side of the bay. It has been recorded the existence of village along the estuary. And Wangal is a clan of Doric tribe, a language group of Aboriginals who are custodians of today's inner west of Sydney. They have occupied the land for more than 20,000 years. Nowadays, Cooks River was managed by 4 councils and Sydney Water, including Strathfield in the west, Canterbury Bankstown, and Bayside Council in the Cooks River catchment. Together, they made a partnership as the Cooks River Alliance. The Alliance is working together to improve the health of Cooks River, including the ecological health of the system and the Cooks River community. It is concerned that the quality of the river can provide a healthy habitat to improve biodiversity. With suitable planning and practice will enhance urban ecological resilience. It may contribute to physical and mental health of Cooks River community. Through the revitalization of the river, it is supported by educating and promoting the rich cultural diversity and historical significance of Cooks River. Cooks River has a significant values to both Aboriginals and people nowadays.
In terms of social and cultural significance of Cooks River, it has long held deep social and cultural significance for the Gadigal and Wangal peoples. Traditionally, it served as a vital source of food, water, and spiritual connection, linking the community to country. These relationships were centered around the river's natural resources and the life it sustained. While the river's first uses have been drastically altered by urbanization, its importance remains. Today, it stands as a symbol of cultural heritage and resilience. The river is still a gathering place reflecting the enduring connection between indigenous communities and the land, even as the landscape has changed. We wanted to have an approach to the Council policies and a comparison of them with Connecting with Country framework. The principles of connecting with country, caring, recognizing, and collaborating are deeply reflected in the policies of the four councils that oversee the Cooks River: Strathfield, Inner West, Canterbury Bankstown, and Bayside. Each council has committed to restoring and protecting the river's ecosystem. Policies include reducing stormwater pollution, enhancing green spaces, and improving biodiversity, which align with the Caring with Country principle. Recognizing the river's cultural significance, these councils are also engaging with indigenous communities to honor traditional knowledge and practices. Collaboration between councils, indigenous groups, and local communities embodies the shared responsibility for the river's future, ensuring its continued role as both a natural and cultural landmark.
In this slide, we have tried to show the changes in river morphology due to human intervention and urban encroachment. This first image is aerial view from 1943 and second image is present one. While overlaying both images, in the third image, we can see several spots where the course of the river was altered by humans for their ease. For example, at the downstream site to construct the Sydney Airport, huge portion of the river course was deviated from its original path. Similarly, we can see the flattening of the meandering river at Dolwizil area to reduce the impact of flood to the residents. We'll discuss about this area later also. Further, the change in river morphology can be observed through these representative sectional views as well. These sections are from upstream side of the river, just underneath the Strathfield Golf Club. In the image on the right hand side, we can see how human intervention resulted in canalized section of the river. This is example of typical engineering to control the flow path, which indicates toward disregards to nature. However, let's not talk about the negative aspects only. There are few positive initiations also, and one can be seen in this image on the left hand side. This is also the spot just at the end of Strathfield Golf Club. Here, the bioengineering and the nature-based solution is evident. The use of dry stone walls and vegetation covers to strengthen the bank is quite appreciable. We can see love towards nature and care for the country approach here.
Cooks River has a relatively flat terrain through the whole river. Because of the tidal influence from Botany Bay, the flood risk is significantly higher in the downstream than the other area. Along the middle stream, the flood-prone area is still impacting a couple blocks of streets. Due to the rapid urbanization of the Inner West along the Cooks River, the river channel was narrowed and canalized with concrete blocks riverbank, causing overflow and runoff during heavy rain. The river lost the natural floodplain to lower the impacts of flooding in low-lying areas of the catchment. Cooks River flows across mainly the residential area, with several mixed-use and industrial area. At the end, it passes the large urban infrastructure area to enter Botany Bay. Flooding is impacting the built structure along the river stream. Other part of the canalized river starts being naturalized. The parks and reserves along the river is yet to serve as natural barrier to minimize the impact of flooding. According to further study of the form of Cooks River, it is located in the Sydney Basin. The whole catchment starts and ends with Ashfield Shell, which is a part of Rhianamata Group. It is the geographical layer comprised fine-grained sedimentary rocks overlies the older Hawkesbury sandstone. Rapid urban development causing multi-parts of riverbank being canalized, and to cater the needs of large infrastructure, large area of reclamation was implemented in the lower stream of the river, causing erosion and contamination, affecting long-term land stability.
Originally, the Cooks River was surrounded by diverse vegetation communities, including salt marshes, mangroves, and native woodlands. These ecosystems were vital, supporting wildlife and maintaining the river's health. However, over time, urbanization and political boundaries divided the land, and these natural communities were gradually forgotten. As urban sprawl took priority, the river's vegetation was overlooked in planning and development, with many areas replaced by infrastructure. Today, the loss of these original ecosystems is a reminder of the importance of restoring and integrating natural landscapes back into the urban fabric. In recent years, two urban sections along the Cooks River demonstrate efforts to restore aboriginal vegetation and the river's natural path. Downstream in Marrickville, section number 1, the River Pathways Project is reshaping sections of the river to reflect its original flow, reconnecting it to its natural catchment. These design strategies are crucial in healing the river's environment while respecting its indigenous cultural heritage. Also, on the other side, in Canterbury, section number 2, wetlands and salt marshes have been reintroduced along the riverbanks, bringing back native plant species that stabilize the ecosystem and support local wildlife.
Till here, we discussed a macro and meso level study of Cooks River, including its physical form, connection with Aboriginal history, vegetation, and social and cultural significance. Now, we would like to have some in-depth analysis of different areas influenced by the river. The map shows 4 different locations on downstream sides of Cooks River: Canterbury, Dulwich Hill, Marrickville, and Sydney Airport area. As we mentioned earlier, there was change in river morphology in Dulwich Hill and Airport. We want to further explore those places. In addition, to see the interaction of nature and built infrastructures, the place of intersection of river and railway, Canterbury, Mad and Marrickville areas were chosen another study spots. Our first study area near Canterbury. In this study area, we have tried to analyze and answer how the influence of river character has affected the built infrastructures like railway track and buildings. So, for this, we have drawn various cross sections of different spots. The first image is the aerial view, which reflects the T2 Bankstown train line that intersects with the Cooks River, and the section is represented in second figure. From this section, it is distinctly noticeable that the bridge built to cross the river is significantly elevated to accommodate the high flood level of the river. The engineering concept of providing freeboard for the safety of the structure is a result of the unpredictable nature of the river flood. Thus, it reflects that the flooding character of the river shaped the level of the railway track. Move on to next slide. Like the height of the bridge was determined by high flood level, there is similar observation to the building constructed at the bank of the river. This is represented in the first cross section. As the risk of flooding is higher where less green buffer is available, it is observable that to mitigate the risk of flooding, the plinth level of the ground floor is raised. So it affected the height of the building as well. We can see this stairs on the section and one on the image which leads to ground floor, suggesting elevated plinth of the building. Beside that, there is another image of the building that reflects the use of flood walls to prevent flooding to the apartment perimeter. Thus, this section suggests how the river influenced the urban structure. Similarly, on this section, we can see some embankment or filling on the railway track. So, we have produced another cross section to further identify this filling kind of thing. This cross section at the bottom illustrates that the significantly elevated height of the bridge has affected the construction of the approaches on either side of the railway track also. The heavy embankment or fill to meet the gradient requirement of the elevated bridge is evident through the sectional drawing. This embankment construction disrupted the natural topography of the area and separated connection between two sides. Thus, it is arguable that the construction of train lines did not show any benevolence towards nature. Our second study area is near Dulwich Hill. This is one of the places where the shape of the river was modified. The study approach is slightly different here than in Canterbury. Earlier in Canterbury, we used sections for our study, and here we have started with the land use map of the area. The land use map depicted in first figure suggests that the river bank is zoned RE1 or RE2 and preserved as a green space. This space adds value to country-centered urban design and enhances the biodiversity. In addition, these green corridors promote urban ecology and acknowledge the traditional concept of First Nation people, showing love towards nature. Moreover, these spaces act as a riparian buffer that benefits urban life through flood mitigation, water quality protection, and even heat mitigation. Similarly, most of the area around the river is residential, ranging from R1 to R4. This feature indicates the inevitable relationship between humans and water from the early civilization. Thus, it is arguable that once inhabited and used by Aboriginal people for hunting and fishing, the banks of the Cooks River still continue to be a home for new generations. The second image is the topographic map with contour lines that reflect the sloping nature of the ground profile transverse to the Cooks River. This approximate 4% slope suggests the high runoff from the neighborhood to the river, which might negatively impact the river ecosystem through increased risks of erosion, floods, and pollution. The lot boundaries of the property near study area, illustrated in this first image, reflects that the rear-end boundary of several lots was shaped irregularly due to the meandering nature of the river back then. As we mentioned earlier, that the flow path of the river was modified later, and maybe the lot allocation was done before that. We can see how the flow path of the river functioned as a constraint and lot boundary is shaped irregular. In other words, it can also be argued that the course of the river was altered, yet the property boundary remains same, and it is helping us now to visualize the actual path of the river flow back in the history. Now, this last image is long section along the Wardell Road to represent the physical character of the area. The two main observations we would like to share from these long sections are: number one, the buildings following the natural topography, which justifies the benevolence towards nature and minimum disruption to the natural terrain during their constructions. And the number two, the second observation, is the sloping nature of the ground profile, as we have already mentioned earlier. This sloping nature that increases the runoff of the Cooks River. So these are the observations on our built infrastructure and Cooks River and how they interact to each other. Regarding other study area, I would like to pass on to my friends. Thank you.
In the third microscale case study, we analyze the Cooks River corridor within the Marrickville and Tempe areas. The first map demonstrates the river's significant impact on the local landscape and land use patterns over time. The Cooks River has historically been a crucial resource for local communities, supporting both ecological and cultural activities. However, urban development has dramatically altered its natural course. Infrastructure expansion has led to the channelization of river, impacting its flow and surrounding ecosystem. Despite these changes, property boundaries in the area often reflect to the river's original path, indicating its lasting influence on the land ownership and urban design. The irregular shapes of certain boundaries reveal how the river's natural flow historically dictated the development of adjacent properties. The land use map below shows predominant residential zones R1, R2, R3 reflecting high housing demand, alongside special purpose zones SP2, dedicated to parks and community amenities. This highlights a community commitment to preserving green spaces during urbanization. Environmental zones E1 and E2, adjacent to the river, represent ongoing efforts to safeguard its ecological integrity. However, urbanization has adversely affected the river's water quality due to increased runoff, emphasizing the need for community-led initiatives focused on restoration and preservation. Moreover, the Cooks River holds profound historical significance for Aboriginal communities who have utilized it for fishing and cultural practices. Although urban development has modified these interactions, the river remains a vital natural cultural landmark. In summary, the Cooks River corridor in Marrickville and Tempe highlights the relationship between natural resources and urban development. Its significance for Aboriginal communities and its impact on land use patterns remain evident despite changes from urbanization. This slide highlights how urban development has reshaped the Cooks River in Marrickville and Tempe areas. Over the years, the river has been significantly altered by the construction of pathways, which narrowed the waterway and reduced its natural flow. The presence of the Tempe train station has influenced nearby land use, leading to residential and commercial development. However, many homes are oriented away from the river, reflecting a lack of connection to its important natural resource. Mackay Park offers recreational space where people use the pathway for walking, but it further emphasizes the disconnection between the community and the river itself. The section and images illustrate how zoning changes have shifted the relationship between the river and the community, contributing to its disconnection. In summary, urban development has affected the Cooks River by narrowing its flow, altering home orientations, and shaping land use through influences like Tempe train station and Mackay Park. This is the fourth case study of microscale analysis of the Mascot Airport area near the Cooks River corridor. This slide shows how the river was engineered between 1947 and 2024 to support the expansion of Sydney Airport. Starting in 1947, land reclamation and dredging diverted the river by 1.6 kilometers, reshaping it to make space for the airport. By 1953, the river's natural flow was transformed into an engineered drainage system designed to manage water flow around the growing infrastructure. The construction of the international terminal in 1969 and additional land reclamation near the runway in 1975 further modified the river's course, severely impacting the surrounding environment. The river's role as a natural waterway was diminished, and these changes prioritized airport development. The map illustrates the Cooks Rivers corridor in the Mascot Airport area, highlighting the significant impact of urban development on the river's natural flow and surrounding land use. It shows the river's proximity to the Kogra Golf Club, creating a contrast between green spaces and airport's infrastructure. Zoned as SP2 infrastructure, this area prioritizes airport and operations, leading to the river's redirection and altering its natural flow into an engineered drainage system. This change has disrupted the river's ecology and raised concerns about water quality and biodiversity loss. The land use patterns show a mix of industrial and recreational spaces. Although the river is designated as W2 recreational waterways, urban runoff and pollution threaten local habitats. The topography around the airport has been significantly altered to create a flat landscape for the airport operations, disregarding the natural contours of the land. Many lots and blocks around the airport are oriented away from the waterway, creating a disconnect between the community and the river. The changes of the Cooks River in the Mascot Airport area show the significant effects of urban development on natural waterways. This has led to ecological disruption and weakened cultural connections for local communities. The aerial views and sections of the Cooks River corridor reveal a significant transformation due to urban development. The Kogra Golf Club area remains a site for recreational boating and fishing, demonstrating the community interaction with the river persists despite the environmental challenges. However, pollution from the airport operations severely degrades water quality, posing risks to both ecological health and community safety. The industrial buildings in the vicinity oriented away from the river further illustrate a disconnect between residents and its vital natural resource. Additionally, the bridge spanning the river highlights the extensive infrastructure that dominates this landscape. These developments have diminished the area's connection to its aboriginal roots, reflecting a broader trend where urbanization overshadows cultural heritage. In conclusion, while recreational opportunities exist, the overwhelming impact of urban development has led to a profound disconnection from the land and its historical significance.
Conclusion: the Cooks River holds profound significance within the Connecting the Country framework, embodying the values of recognizing, caring, and collaborating. Although the river's original uses as a vital source of food, water, and spiritual connection have largely been forgotten, its role as both an ecological and social asset for the city remains underappreciated. Despite this, there is an ongoing effort to reintroduce indigenous knowledge and cultural practices to the Cooks River. By recognizing its history and caring for its future, local communities and councils are working together to restore the river's health. This collaboration honors the river's past while shaping a new social identity rooted in contemporary values. Today, the river is becoming a symbol of resilience and shared responsibility, reflecting a blend of indigenous heritage and modern community based environmental actions. It's a reminder that even as the landscape changes, the essence of the river as a cultural and ecological lifeline endures.